Marvel's Hawkeye sees Clint Barton finally get his time in the spotlight, and seems to be making the, in my opinion, correct decision to take cues from Matt Fraction and David Aja's incredible 2012 run. But there's one story the MCU will never be adapting. Following his death in Avengers Disassembled and subsequent resurrection in House of M, and second death and resurrection in House of M, all at the hands of the Scarlet Witch, Clint was in a bad place. This is where we find him in New Avengers 26, Volume 4. He's living off the grid, visits the ruined Avengers mansion, and not wanting to face the Avengers yet, goes to Doctor Strange, who looks loads like Sean Penn, for some advice. Seeking closure about what's happened to him, Clint goes in search of Wanda and finds her in Wundagore Mountain, which is the second place Clint looks, and wherever anyone would look, which is funny. Why's no one found her? Anyway, after stopping a boy from stealing from her, Clint passes out at the sight of Wanda, who takes him back to her house to look after him. It's here things become messed up. Clint wakes up and they talk. He learns she has amnesia, knowing her name but nothing about herself, not remembering the Avengers, and having false memories about living in Wundagore with her Aunt Agatha her entire life. This causes Clint to break down crying as he cannot find the closure he seeks. Wanda consoles him, and the two become intimate. The following day, Clint wakes up and checks Wanda's house to find she lives alone, further emphasising she is still struggling with her reality. This brings us to the problem I have with this issue. It is not okay for Clint to sleep with Wanda. In a weak defence, she comes onto him and he's clearly struggling with his deaths, resurrections, and not being able to get the closure he needs from her. So he's definitely off balance and not thinking correctly. I think this is the way the scene is intended to be read, that Clint is having trouble and they're two people in pain. Now, to ruin that defence completely, I'd argue her mental instability means she's not capable of making her own choices. She's massively troubled and doesn't know the whole picture, unlike Clint, who obviously knows who she is and that she's not well. There's panels showing his realisation of this. If at any point Clint had said, "I know who you are and you need help, let me explain," she'd have stopped trying to seduce him. Him withholding the truth from her is what allows this to continue. Intentional or not, Clint is taking advantage. I mean, he has the actual advantage of knowing who she is. Making this worse is that the issue is building off of Clint having a thing for Wanda in previous Avengers stories, but this context makes him look like more of a predator because we know he wants this on some level. After this issue, Clint leaves Wanda to her new life. Why doesn't he then tell anyone where she is? Does he fear she'll be arrested, or if Wolverine had his way killed? Surely he can tell Captain America. This is never explored. He just leaves her. The whole thing is gross and uncomfortable, at the very least immoral, and most likely rape by deception or some form of sexual assault. It's so weird and creepy that Alan Heinberg retconned it so that the Wanda we see here was actually a Doombot, thankfully removing most of the problems in this awful chapter of Clint's history. Hard to believe this is written by Brian Michael Bendis, the same guy who wrote Alias, what was the basis for Marvel Netflix's Jessica Jones. If you know someone unfortunate enough to suffer memory loss, don't use that to try and sleep with them. Don't be Bendis' Hawkeye. It's not okay.